say things confidently, you can get away with it. I love nicknames. Nicknames are neat. You know, some nicknames, you get the nickname because you did something great. You know, you won you got the winning touchdown in the playoff game back in high school. Maybe some nicknames are just something your dad gave you, buddy or sport or something like that. Some nicknames are not so great. You know, they're embarrassing because you made a mistake and they're kind of sarcastic. Anytime you do something really dumb, people will say, well, great job, Einstein. You know, some nicknames just don't stick, like Rossitron. Like things with nicknames, there's always a meaning that's attached to it. You got the reference, didn't you? There's a meaning that's attached to it, and sometimes the meaning is really good. It's meant as a compliment. Other times the meaning is meant as a criticism or a reminder of something that was not quite as complimentary. Well, there's a nickname that was given in Mark chapter 3 and verse 17 by Jesus to two of his disciples, the brothers, James and John, the sons of Zebedee. And Jesus decided to give them the nickname Boanerges, which means sons of thunder. Now, at first, you're thinking like, man, that's a wicked nickname. Sons of thunder? Why? I wish someone would call me the son of thunder sometime. I don't have any cool nicknames because I've never done anything cool enough to warrant son of thunder. But again, what at first might seem like a really cool nickname that just shows like the fiery spirit of James and John might actually be a subtle criticism of that same fiery spirit of James and John. I want to dig a little bit into this idea of the nickname that Jesus gave them, sons of thunder. You know, they can have both good and bad meanings. A son of thunder, right? You might think of that as fiery and potent. Like, and got to have a son of thunder on your side. I'm glad we have sons of thunder in the midst of our disciples. Maybe that's kind of why Jesus gave them that nickname. But you know, the son of thunder has another side to that coin. A son of thunder is also impetuous and abrupt and jarring. You know, I have never expected that thunderclap. I mean, maybe you see like that bright lightning and you know a thunderclap's going to come, but even if you see the lightning before, and it's not like you know the exact time that a thunderclap hits. I always love it, by the way, when we're here at the church building and it's like a Wednesday night, so it's dark outside, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we're just minding our own business, having Bible class, and boom, you get that thunderclap. And it always catches you by surprise. It's jarring, it's abrupt, it's impetuous, it interrupts. I think another great example of a nickname in the Bible is Jacob. If you're not familiar with the story, that's okay. Back in the book of Genesis, like the first book of the Bible, there's a guy named Jacob, and he's a twin. They look different. They're very, very different. His brother is Esau. But Jacob was kind of a sneaky, conniving, outsmarty kind of brother. He managed to weasel his way into his brother's birthright and a blessing from their father. He was a trickster. He was the ultimate like sleazy salesman. He could sell anything to anybody and always seemed to get away with it. And Jacob, by the way, I'll say this, Jacob's like my favorite character from the Old Testament because I don't see any other character change and grow and evolve the way that Jacob does from his beginning to who he becomes eventually. But there's this seminal moment in Jacob's life where he is wrestling with this extremely concerning situation. And again, for the sake of time, we won't get into all the details or anything, but he's wrestling with this very concerning, very stressful situation. And out of the blue, a man shows up in the middle of the night and starts wrestling with him. And he's like wrestling him hard, right? And it's like, And so Jacob ends up wrestling with this man who turns out to be a messenger from God, an angel. He's wrestling with him all night. You know what God decides to do? He decides to give Jacob a nickname. It's like, you wrestled with God. All right. I'm going to call you Israel from now on. And the name Israel literally means he who wrestles with God. Now, did God mean that as a compliment? Maybe. The idea that we all have to go through a wrestling process. We have tough questions about God. We have struggles in our faith. We go through tragedies and we ask those hard questions of God, where were you? God, when are you going to answer? God, are you going to let me go through this without? We have those tough, we wrestle. But I think there's also a criticism being offered to Jacob, essentially saying, Jacob, you've been a headache to everybody in your life. You've been a headache to your parents. You've been a headache to your brother. You've been a headache to me. You have been a headache to everybody around you. And so I'm going to give you a nickname that's fitting for a person like you. One who wrestles with God. That is a not so subtle criticism. Now, getting back to the nickname that Jesus gave James and John, sons of thunder. Jesus had his own reasons for nicknaming several of his disciples, including Simon, who he called Peter. Peter means rock, and Matthew 16 gives an explanation about why he chooses that name for Simon. Some of them, of course, are prophetic nicknames. Some are subtly critical. Some might even be a little bit tongue-in-cheek. And I think the reason why he named them sons of thunder is because of their fiery and passionate personalities. Remember James and John, these are blue-collar guys. They're out there, they're pulling fishing nets from the sea all day at work, under the hot sun, manual labor, trying to keep dad's family business afloat in a tough part of the world. Like these are hard tackle sort of, or hard tack sort of guys that they're just out there making a living, and you'd expect them to also be people with a fiery personality. It also matches up with a story here from Luke chapter 9. In Luke chapter 9 and verses 51 through 56, we see that fiery personality really come into play. When the days were approaching for his ascension, that is Jesus, his ascension, he was determined to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead of him, and they went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make arrangements for him. But they did not receive him because he was traveling toward Jerusalem. And you can read into that. I think there's a variety of reasons why these Samaritans might have had an issue with Jesus. Maybe they felt some betrayal, like Jesus had entertained kind of a warm overture toward Gentiles, and now all of a sudden he's heading toward Jerusalem, the center of Judaism. Well, we don't really know why it is that the Samaritans are suddenly so cold with Jesus. But boy, the sons of Zebedee take it hard. This cold reception by the Samaritans with Jesus is like, they take it personally. So James and John, his disciples, saw this and they said to Jesus, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them? All right, now, credit to them for believing that they could actually do that. They shouldn't do it. But, that Jesus had told his disciples, like, you've seen wonders done by me, miracles and signs. You're going to do miracles as well. You're going to do signs and wonders as well. And I've given you the kind of power that if you had to move a mountain, if that's what needed to be done, is to say to that mountain, pick up and go into the sea, you've got that power at your disposal. You have incredible power from God to do signs and wonders. And so James and John, to their credit, actually believe that if they wanted to call down fire from heaven, they could call down fire from heaven. And again, I'm giving them some due because I think that's worth pointing out that they had that kind of faith. But sometimes faith coupled with immaturity, or faith coupled with being impetuous, or faith coupled with having a little bit of a temper, or faith coupled with any number of not so noble virtues, produces a response like this. So the Samaritans don't want to welcome Jesus into their town. That is definitely worthy of the death penalty. That's it. That's it. I've been to a bad Arby's every now and then. And there was one time we went to Arby's. What is Arby's logo? What is their tagline? Like, Arby's, we have the meat. Okay. You know what? We went to Arby's one time and said, we'll have some roast beef sandwiches. You know what they told me? We are out of roast beef. You're Arby's. Just shut the whole place down at this point. Where was I going with that? Oh. I know. But you wouldn't call fire down from heaven because a restaurant got your order wrong, or you got bad service, or you just had a bad conversation with a cell phone company or a health insurance or something like that. But here's James and John, like, we didn't receive a warm reception from the Samaritans. We feel totally justified. We feel like this is the appropriate answer right now is, Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven? And instead of complimenting them for their creativity or verve, he rebukes them and says, you do not know what kind of spirit you are. For the Son of Man did not come to destroy people's lives, but to save them. And I think that's why he nicknamed them Sons of Thunder. Maybe just to remind them for the rest of their lives that in a moment of temper tantrum and immaturity, and without really thinking through what kind of spirit you're supposed to be, oh, Sons of Thunder. Great idea. I think we need that, though. We need to be reminded every now and then of where we've come from and how far we've come now. We need to be reminded that in our spiritual journey, there was a point in our lives where we thought that some terrible, horrible sin was a great idea. We need to be reminded that at some point, now I'm not saying drive it home and live in guilt. I'm saying that look at the journey you've been on. Like at some point in your life, you thought that a career really was the only thing that you needed to make you happy, ever. At some point in your life, you really thought that getting addicted to pornography was a great way to manage your emotions and your need for connection and relationship. At some point in your life, you really thought that extra drink on a Friday night before grabbing the keys to your car was a smart way to manage your affairs. At some point in your life, you really thought that was a good idea. Sons of Thunder? But look how far you've come. Look how far you've come. Look how much you've grown and how much you've changed. And the same Son of Thunder who wanted to bring fire down from heaven in John, the son of Zebedee, what do we know him for now? John wrote the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and if there is one theme that stands out above all others in John's writing, what is it? Starts with an L, ends with O-V-E. Love. Just read John. Just read his 3 letters. Love is all over the pages of John's writing. He is the apostle of love. And it just shows how far he came. From wanting to kill people for not welcoming him into their town to writing about love so effusively in every page of what he wrote. Because he finally learned that the Son of Man didn't come to destroy people's lives, but to save them. Let me give you a couple of lessons here, and then I want to have one big last point, but let me throw a few things in here before I get to my last point, okay? First of all, it is okay to be offended for Jesus. When I read that story, I get it. You are Jesus and the disciples. You've done miracles, including helping Samaritans, by the way, okay? You have helped Samaritans. Jesus has taught about the Good Samaritan and how Samaritans are even capable of amazing good things and deep faith. So it's you're James and John going give us some credit here, Samaritans. We have been nothing but uncommonly kind to the Samaritan cause, and you don't even want us coming into your town now. So, wouldn't you be a little bit offended too? So I just think, like, it's okay to be offended for Jesus. And in more modern language, when people get on YouTube and spout nasty things about the Bible or Jesus, or say that Jesus was a fraud, that he never existed, that religion is some kind of like coping mechanism for stupid people, it's okay to be offended by that. But we've got to be careful not to respond the way James and John did. We're going to face persecution. We're going to encounter blasphemy. We will have to work through when people we love fall away from the faith, or hypocritical Christians drive them away from the faith. But our first response can't always be the right one. Violence. Getting online and, oh yeah, getting in an argument with someone on Facebook, because that changes people's minds, doesn't it? And so, like Jesus says, slow down. You don't know what you're talking about right now. You don't know what kind of spirit you're supposed to be. You're not doing what Jesus would be doing, responding the way Jesus would be responding. Our first response should be to vet ideas, to study them out, to ponder them, to think about them, to sleep on it, to put ideas through a filter, ask questions, investigate. Don't just take somebody's word for it. Just like rash vows. Remember the story of Jephthah? God, if you help me win this battle, then the first thing that comes out of my house to greet me in victory, I'm going to burn it as a sacrifice. Lo and behold, what's the first thing that comes out of Jephthah's house to greet him when he comes home in victory? His own daughter. Right? False or rash vows. Putting stuff out there without really thinking through it first. Another idea is feelings don't always mean that you're right. You might feel, I'm offended by that. I feel really offended by that. Well, why? I feel really offended. Well, do you have a right to be offended? I feel really offended. I'm mad right now. Okay, well, go chill out for a while. Calm down, sleep on it, and maybe you won't be so mad about it. Feelings don't mean you're right. James and John felt anger. They were mad at the Samaritans. We've got tired feet, and you're the Lord of the universe, and they don't want to let us in and give us a place to sleep for the night while we're on our way to Jerusalem. I'm angry. Let's burn them down. Let's bring down fire from heaven. Lightning bolts will scar the hair off their scalps. Be careful that your supposed righteous indignation isn't just plain old indignation. I mean, it's very easy to call something righteous indignation in the moment when you feel totally justified in how you feel or how you think. And yet the recommendation from like Colossians chapter 3 is to take anger and harsh words and to put them all away. In our scripture reading a little while ago from Galatians chapter 5, in the deeds of the flesh versus the fruits of the Spirit. Which one do you tend to? Hey, which of those lists versus the flesh and the Spirit, which of those lists tends to be your first gut reaction in most things? Tends to be the deeds of the flesh. But that doesn't mean that you're justified in acting them out. Remember what it says in James chapter 1. Great verse here. I always try to remember James chapter 1. And you'll notice I'm being nonpartisan here, okay? I'm being nonpartisan. Anger problems are a right and left problem. But in James chapter 1, listen to what the apostle says there in James chapter 1 and verse 19. This you know, my beloved brethren, but let everyone be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger, for the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Just slow down before you call fire from heaven down on the people that make you mad. Just take a moment and listen. Shut your mouth. Take it all in. The anger of man. Well, what if I feel really just? Well, the anger of man doesn't accomplish the righteousness of God. Now, does the anger of God accomplish the righteousness of God? Absolutely. Is God allowed to be angry? Absolutely. Because, God has this little thing that we don't have that helps him along when it comes to anger and indignation, and it's that little tiny component that we don't always think about, which is absolute divine moral perfection. That's why the anger of man doesn't accomplish the righteousness of God, because God is always good and always righteous absolutely. For us, at best, it's a 50-50. So the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. And I get it. I get it. Like saying this, preaching this on a Sunday here in Gainesville, Florida. What are we going to do? Are we going to change the tone in Washington, D.C.? Are we going to are there going to be people out there throwing flaming garbage in the streets that go, well, wait, Ryan preached on this last week. Hold on, everybody. Are we going to change the world because we get up and say the anger of man does not accomplish the righteousness of God? So we all need to stop being sons of thunder and chill out and be more loving and more patient? Is that going to change the world? Probably not. I'll just say confidently no. But maybe this week, it might change me. If I'm thinking about it, it might change you. Maybe this week, you'll respond a little bit better to a problem at work than you would have. Maybe this week, you'll be a little more patient with your children. Maybe this week, you won't let the cat out of the bag and say things that you shouldn't say, that you can't ever put back once you put them out there. Maybe this week, in some small act of kindness, you will show that you've gone from being a son of thunder to growing as a Christian. And you'll see a little step in that journey this week. Being a son of thunder is fine unless it's not what God needs you to be. If God is not asking us to be sons of thunder, then we don't need to be sons of thunder. In the moment, we don't need to call down fire from heaven on the Samaritans, proverbially speaking, in our lives. And being a son of thunder does not equip you very well to handle most of the real problems that we face, most of the real situations that God wants us to manage in our lives, families, our church, and our community. Being a son of thunder, when you're a son of thunder, you don't know how to handle a lot of things that are going to come up. You don't know how to handle when someone needs a gentle response. A young couple comes to you, they're struggling to find their way. They've been married a year and a half. Life has gotten hard. Money is hard. The relationship is hard. A son of thunder doesn't know how to handle that. Sons of thunder don't know how to unlock a hard heart that's been hurt by abuse. To actually sit down and listen to someone whose parents were abusive, who were in an abusive church situation, who've been abused by a boss. Sons of thunder don't know how to sit down and just listen to that and unpack it and help people. Sons of thunder don't know how to be patient with the ignorant. When someone does get on Facebook and say something stupid about religion that is just factually wrong, a son of thunder doesn't know how to pull them aside in some way and explain things more accurately in a way that actually pulls them closer to Jesus rather than pushes them further. A son of thunder doesn't know how to submit when they disagree. Whether that's in a marriage or in a church or in any other setting, a son of thunder doesn't know how to submit even when he or she is in disagreement. A son of thunder doesn't know how to be the cooler head that prevails. When everybody else is going wild, a son of thunder joins the crowd in fury. Sons of thunder don't know how to lead the ignorant to Jesus in spite of frustrating obstacles. So I guess being a son of thunder is fine in the very rare instance when God actually wants you to be calling fire down from heaven, which I don't know about you, he's never asked me to do that personally. But in all the rest of your life, it kind of sounds like being a son of thunder is not particularly helpful, at least as far as you wanted to be a son of God. And so my recommendation to you is exactly what Jesus did with his disciples, is look at the bigger picture. You don't understand what's at stake right now. I didn't come here to burn Samaritan villages down. That's not why I'm here. I came to save Samaritans. And while I'm at it, I came to save you, James and John. I came to save you too. So see the big picture. See that there's more at stake than just winning an argument with someone. There's more at stake than just getting one spot ahead in traffic. There's more at stake than being right with your spouse. There's more at stake in us being peacemakers than problem creators and sons of thunder who always act first and maybe don't even think to ask questions later. Well, if you're not a Christian here this day, you really should be. Have you read this great book? It's eye-opening. If you don't have a Bible, you can have one. We got a bunch of them. Take it. It's yours. Love for you to study it, read it, ask us questions. If you've read this, though, and you know the right thing to do, don't dig your heels in. Don't be stubborn any longer. We're here to help. That's what a church family does. That's what God's people do. That's what peacemakers do. That's what sons of God do, is we're here to help. So my invitation to you, that if you have any need at all of a spiritual nature on this fine, beautiful Lord's Day, please just let that need be known. We're going to sing a song in a sec, and if you need something from us of a spiritual nature, then come forward as we stand and sing together at this time.